Hey friends, welcome back to the channel with another issues-focused video. So far, all of these videos have been focused on mental health, but from the start, I've wanted to tackle different issues as well. And this video, Do All Asian Americans Think Alike, should be one that I have quite some expertise on, given that I've grown up my entire life here. Now, obviously, the answer is no, they don't all think alike, but I'm interested in seeing different experiences and different viewpoints. This video is from a channel called Jubilee. I've watched some of their other stuff that I didn't think would be a good fit for making videos, and I think it's great that they try to get people to understand each other. Fingers crossed that they won't block my reaction on the YouTubes, because I think there are a lot of good videos they have on their channel. But let me know in the description if there are other channels or videos that I should check out for this issues-focused series. There are definitely a lot on Jubilee, definitely going to continue with Cinema Therapy. Psych2Go has some really good videos as well. And maybe there are good TED Talks, I don't know, but let me know if you have any suggestions. But without further ado, let's check this one out.
Asian stereotypes and jokes are so played out. If it's the same shit that we've heard for the last 50 years, like, miss me with that. It's so boring at this point.
Yeah. Spectrum. This was in 2019, so pre-COVID. Everybody could still get together. Right off the bat, though, it says Asian American, but I guess they just mean East or Southeast Asian. Yeah, definitely seems like it. Seems like we have someone from the LGBTQ community, so that's cool. Okay, so here's how I'll do these videos. I'm not gonna see where they go first. I'm gonna say what I think first. Asian food is better than American food. It really depends on what you mean by American food, because if you're talking about like hot dogs and burgers and whatnot, the things that typically come to mind, I would not say American food is better. But if you start touching on soul food and Southern food and a whole bunch of other things, it's all subjective. But for me, I think subjectively, Asian food is better.
3, 2, 1.
Let's see. Oh, most of them agree. He's like, whoa, oh, I'm the only one coming over here?
Wait, describe American food though. I just thought of hamburgers and
Yeah.
I hear
hamburgers
American
and
food.
meatloaf and stuff?
Yeah, and meatloaf and
Meatloaf.
mashed potatoes and stuff. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
no.
of course Asian food's better than that.
I was just denied Asian food for a long time. My mom wanted to be Caucasian. She wanted me to grow up as a white person. And I think I was maybe 10 or 11 when I truly experienced Korean cuisine. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Oh, that is sad though. I know a lot of people whose parents actually act like that. They want them to assimilate so much and get rid of their culture. It's sad. They didn't have Korean food until they were 10. Oh man.
Saying I find really common because when I grew up, my parents were both people from Vietnam. They wanted us to assimilate as much as possible and not be made fun of. So I love Asian food. It's who I am. But I'm from Texas, so I grew up on chicken fried steak and biscuits,
some
and
good
kind of
stuff.
So I fucking love American food.
I want to hear the guy who who just disagreed in general. I have felt pressure to date within my own race. Shoot. Oh, I didn't say how much I agreed last time. I think I would have, for the food question, I would have somewhat agreed. I wouldn't have full on agreed or strongly agreed. Because I would have agreed. Not strongly or somewhat agreed with the food. But yeah, I have felt pressure to date within my own race. I would say I somewhat agree. Mostly because, yeah, my dad doesn't care so much, but my mom does care a little bit. She has said something to the extent of oh, date to this type of person from this race and I'll kill you. I don't think she's outright ever said date somebody who's Chinese or date somebody specifically from who's a Fuzhouren, which means that they're from the Fujian province, which our entire family is from the Fujian province originally. But they've never said that specifically, but they have voiced an opinion on race. So yeah, I guess I would say somewhat agree.
3, 2, 1.
I would assume a lot of them go to the agree side, which no, it's even.
My dad doesn't care. He's happy no matter if I'm happy. My mom never specifically said it, but it was almost like if I don't bring home a Korean or a Caucasian, which is her preference, like I don't know if she's gonna disown me. I don't know. Will she kind of
His
push
mom
away a
is
little bit
something
from
else.
me? And I don't want that.
My parents, at one point in time, were very heavily like, you need to marry like a Vietnamese person. But as I got older, I understood why for them, because it's more about, we just want to be able to relate to the person that you're actually with so we can talk to them too.
You see, I think my dad comes from, like, I have a lot of complaints about my dad, but this is one area where I don't. He just says, like, he doesn't care if he needs to get along with whoever I date, because he's like, you're the person who's gonna have to live with them. You're the person who's gonna have to deal with them on a daily basis. Like, I should have no say. Like, if they infuriate me, if I hate them, like, it doesn't matter. It just still does not matter. Which is a nice sentiment, actually. And yeah, it's interesting to hear the other people have, I guess, in a lot of Asian cultures for Asian immigrants, they think of it as like welcoming somebody into their family. So it's not just that you're marrying each other, but you're also marrying the family. And that, from that point of view, I understand where they're coming from, but I do not agree at all with what they are saying.
It's really interesting because I'm actually married to a black woman. I'm Chinese Malaysian, but I grew up with a white father. Like, white people were definitely always an option, but then, you know, other groups of people, it's like, well, we're not really sure that they're like that great.
That often seems to be the case. It's like you can date white or Asian and everyone else off the table for some reason.
Yeah, that has definitely been the case with a lot of Asians. Yeah, it exists. There's a preference that exists in a lot of, at least, Asian immigrant mentalities. I don't know, because I don't know anybody who is second generation who thinks that way for their children, but I can imagine there are still many who do, because they've been influenced by their parents. Like, the people who I'm friends with are all people who are very rebellious against the cultural norms of East Asia or wherever Asian country they're from. So it's not fair to take that sample size and just speak on behalf of all Asians.
Asian stereotypes are funny.
This is, like, obviously, I think every demographic should be able to make fun of themselves. That's why with James Gunn, he made jokes about pedophilia, which, from the outside looking in, they're not funny to me, and they seem offensive. But he was also molested as a child, and so using humor to deal with that, I can totally understand. So with Asians making fun of themselves for certain stereotypes, I think that is okay. And okay.
Are funny. I feel like,
he has very funny mannerisms.
oh wait, somewhat disagree.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
We're not judging. You can choose
What was the
whatever you want.
decision making in your head during
Well,
that
my
moment?
head is like stereotypes are a reflection of perceived behavior, and also I write comedy, and so I'm constantly thinking of ways to maybe subvert a stereotype to get a laugh. I feel like it's always dangerous though, because you never know if the joke is going to be perceived as like, oh, they're making fun of this stereotype or they're reinforcing this stereotype.
But even then, you're saying, like, the stereotype itself is not funny, but your subversion of it is.
Okay.
She's giving him a better understanding of his own material. That's pretty great.
So,
this guy's hilarious. This guy is freaking hilarious. Oh my god, his manner, he's like so tentative and like.
I'm just like tired of like Asian stereotypes and jokes are so played out. If it's the same shit that we've heard for the last 50 years in like American culture, then like miss me with that. It's so boring at this point. I don't find it funny.
Well, I totally understand from another point of view how that's absolutely inappropriate, but from a personal level, I'm not offended, I'm not hurt. Some of them are actually like, yeah, yeah, that's kind of true.
What's an example, I guess?
Yeah, actually, I might move again. You know, like for instance, me as a Korean.
Oh my God.
Like, if I were to say something about like how I feel like a lot of Koreans behave, like Koreans love K-pop, like boy bands. It could be funny, and it's not necessarily an offensive stereotype.
But growing up with like Asian men have small penises and all sorts of other emasculating kind of stereotypes. Those kind of stereotypes play into like, why can't I be the love interest? Because I have a small penis, but I don't actually know that, and why does it matter?
What you're talking about is like a stereotype that's been put upon Asians by non-Asians. If we Asians want to talk about like subcultures in Asia and like make fun of shit, totally down. Might find it funny. We'll see how the joke is. Totally. I guess like when
okay.
you say, when the statement is Asian stereotypes are funny, I'm often thinking about Western stereotypes about Asians.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not funny. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's true. He makes a good distinction. Western stereotypes that don't understand the culture, making fun of that culture.
Asian people have it easier than other minorities.
So yeah, I think. Oh, so I have not been playing by the own rules I set. So do I agree that Asian stereotypes are? It was saying, are they funny, right? So I would have to say disagree. I wouldn't go all the way to strongly disagree because of the aforementioned distinction between Western stereotypes of Asians and Asian stereotypes of their own people. Asian people have it easier than other minorities. I would say, probably strongly agree. Maybe agree. Let me see what they have to say about it first.
2, 1.
When you say it has it easier, I think it discounts the amount of work that's gone into building those communities up. People are working up towards, becoming professionals or white-collar professionals. Like, I don't think Asians have it easier. I think many Asians have just fought harder.
Oh, that is some model minority bullshit right there. He really believes that Asians just fight harder for what they've gotten? Like, a lot of the reason that Asians are put on a pedestal as the model minority is because our immigrants from Asian countries come in with degrees. They're let in because they have attained a higher education. They have expertise in things that are useful to the American economy. And so the net worth on average is higher for Asians. And then they also have, because of that, it continues to the next generation because they have the resources to send them to specialized high schools or specialized training or like specialty like training schools, summer schools, stuff like that, and test prep school. That's what I was looking for. That's the word I was looking for. The idea that we just work harder for it is ridiculous. And wow.
I'm not saying.
I guess cringing. I'm not sure.
I think.
I can tell she agrees with me.
They have.
She's like,
I think that part of like how white supremacy works
there we
to
go.
kind of
Exactly
like cover
what I just
up
said.
is to say like, well, if this one group of minorities is doing so well, then there can't be racism in this country. We as Asian Americans have to understand that we are props for white supremacy when we buy into the idea that all of this stuff that we've gotten is purely through our hard work.
Yes, exactly what I was trying to say, but much more eloquently. We are often put up on a pedestal so that we can be an example of what minorities should be by white people. And by playing into that, we are upholding white supremacy. Not to mention the fact that there are many, many Asians who are suffering at poverty rates. And the model minority myth also makes them suffer more as well, because even though like the proportion of funds to help those in poverty are not proportionate for Asian communities because, Asians are the model minority. They don't need it. And so I think in New York City, we have double the national poverty rate among Asian Americans, and they don't get the funding because we are the model minority. We don't need it, so to speak. We don't need it. When in fact, many of them do. So it hurts all the other minorities when we believe this model minority myth, and it also hurts our own people.
I think Asians do have it easier just because we're not portrayed so negatively.
Yeah, we don't have as many like overtly like negative stereotypes that are like thrown at us.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, the fact that a lot of all six of these people are rather light skinned. They're East Asian or Southeast Asian, but even the Southeast Asians can like they have paler skin, so they are not immediate. There's for whatever reason, I won't get into it now. There's this fascination with paleness in all societies across the world, which I don't understand, but we clearly benefit from that as well.
I mean, like, you look at immigration, and like nobody's freaking out about Asians coming into the country, which I feel like it's just been interesting to me to see, especially also like Asian Americans that are okay with it because it's not them right now. In that sense, I'm like, oh, we must have it easier because we're not concerned about what's happening to other people.
That is, I don't understand fully what he said there, but I do have an issue with how unconcerned the Asian American community is as a whole, not all of them. As a whole, we are largely unconcerned with the plight of others. It's just keep your head down, grind, and don't make noise, assimilate, which is a really frustrating ideology to have to deal with. All right. Wait. I keep forgetting to say how far along the line I am. What was the question? What was the question? What was the prompt rather? That I have it easier or Asians have it easier than other minorities. I think I said I'm between somewhat agree and agree, but I have to choose one, right? Let's see. You actually can't for this series spectrum. You can't stay in the middle. You have to take some sort of stance, so it really makes people think. But I'm stuck between agree and somewhat agree. Obviously, each minority faces different things, and it's not to discount the things that people go through, but I do think we have it more difficult, or less difficult rather, than most minorities, because, I mean, it's easy for us to get loans, much easier than for Black and Latino people, so, like, that in and of itself, there are many types of similar examples like that. All right, so yeah, somewhat agree. I would move to my heritage country permanently. Holy, get me all the way to strongly disagree. Go all the way past it to the wall. Just go.
Super conflicted on this one.
I went to the motherland maybe like 5 years ago, and I thought that it was just gonna be like so much fun and they were gonna like be accepting, and for the most part they are. But when I went there, I realized like I'm not from here. Like it was really pretty obvious.
I mean, I definitely want to connect to the culture that I was born into, but also a huge part of my identity is my queerness. And in Malaysia, LGBTQ people definitely don't have the same legal protections, if they have any protections at all.
Okay, first to apologize to anybody who I hope I didn't offend anybody by being like, oh, one of them is queer. Like just based on her haircut alone, I was like, yeah, she's queer. I hope that's not an offensive assumption to make, but yeah, I could tell right away. And obviously, yeah, I'm not on the LGBTQ part of the community, and so I also know that yeah, a lot of the East Asian countries are not as accepting of that community, and yeah, I've heard many anti-trans jokes throughout the years, and yeah, it's just even though I'm not part of the community, just being around people who I know feel a certain way about others would just be too much. I cannot, and the cultural norms in, I guess, I don't know, my heritage country, I guess, would be China. I am Chinese, but my mom's from Taiwan, my dad's from Hong Kong. But yeah, I cannot imagine going there. I find myself very annoyed, like most annoyed by Chinese people. Like the people I'm most annoyed by in my country, in the United States, are Chinese people. So I cannot imagine wanting to go over there for an extended period of time. Of course, absorbing the culture would be nice because I had basically zero exposure to Chinese culture other than I guess, mooncakes once in a while, and I know the language, Mandarin language. Other than that, my parents didn't expose me really to the culture, so uh, it would be nice to know more about the culture, like the festivals, the I don't know what else to. I don't. I don't really. I haven't connected with a culture, so I don't know what culture there is to connect with.
And so that is painful to know that if I went back, I wouldn't be accepted.
It's a funny thing that happens when I go back to China, which is like the feeling that I never get here, which is like when you walk onto a public street, you feel like you're not identified by what you look like, which is amazing. But that being said, like I feel culturally, I'm American. I love being here, and I think that being like an individual with freedom is like part of who I am.
So yeah, I don't have the same. Like obviously, all Asians don't think alike, so I do not have that same experience as he does. That walking down the street, that I'm being identified as Asian. But I think that has somewhat changed with COVID. Um, but and I know a lot of people who feel distinctly Asian when they go out. Um, for some reason, I do not receive the same type of racial hatred that a lot of other Asians do. Like my father has, like my mother has, um, and I don't know why that is. Maybe because I'm bigger and people are less likely or less willing to insult someone who can probably beat them up. I don't know, but I don't know.
In the sense that like, I wouldn't necessarily fit in China. And I feel like so much of the time we're like asked to be like, well, are you Asian? Are you American? It's like, no, like, I'm Asian American. I don't think we have to be that or this.
So yeah, I would strongly disagree there. Asian culture is important too.
Culture is important to me.
I mean, I don't know what they mean. Like culture, this prompt is has so much to unpack because culture has so many different meanings. It could be, uh, I don't. There's just so many things. But as a whole, I would say, like, I wouldn't change who I am. I would not be another race, another ethnicity, if I could change it. So in that sense, it's important to me, but I don't feel that strong of a desire to connect to it. And a large part of that, there's even parts of me that want to push away from it because um, the Asian sensibilities are very different from the American sensibilities that I grew up with. It's hard to separate, I guess, also what is Asian culture and what is just my parents, because they obviously are the ones who have given me the most exposure to it. Um, and their way of thinking is just so annoying to me, and it's so something that I hate so much that it's hard to really, I don't know where to go with this. I think I might go to somewhat agree for those reasons that there are things I would value about being, there are things that I value about being Asian, but a lot of it, a lot of Asian culture, I feel like I need to push against.
3, 2, 1.
He's always the last to move, isn't he?
Yeah, it's important to me.
Don't go judge. It's all right.
It's okay.
Oh my
I
God.
just want to know what you think.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think about this a lot. Is like sometimes I forget that I'm Asian, and then like it's kind of jarring to be reminded that I am. And so like
Were you raised like with strong cultural values and stuff?
I was raised. I'm a military brat, and so even though I grew up in Korea, it was on the military base, and so it was like an American
Oh, wow.
high school in like a small American city in the middle of Seoul. Me and my brother were usually the only Asian kids, so I remember kind of like, do I want to stand out as like the only Asian kid, or do I just want to be another one of the kids?
Okay, so I think a lot of that also has to do with my own experience is that, yeah, I grew up in a city with so many Asian kids. Like, it was never unusual to see Asians walking down the street either. Even though I lived in a predominantly white neighborhood, there would still be Asians like here and there. Um, and I think that plays a big role in, there's a big difference between people who had the privilege of growing up in New York City for not, and those who grew up basically on their own, like culturally isolated. It's
I think there
interesting.
can be balance in that. And that was the biggest problem I had growing up is that I didn't know
I wanted to be American so bad. I thought I had to choose a side. And then eventually I was like, look, both are part of who I am. But what has furthered this strongly agree part is that I have a 3-year-old child. He's half Chinese, half Vietnamese. And I don't want him to live with the confusion that I grew up with.
For me, like, it actually, I feel a lot of pain still and a lot of grief because when we moved to the US, and you know, this was like in a time still where you need to speak to your kids in English. They have to just know English, and anything else will confuse them. So my mom stopped speaking to me in Hakka, and I forgot that language. And we also didn't really celebrate any cultural traditions, you know, Chinese or Malaysian or Chinese Malaysian. I have no idea what that really is.
Yeah, me too.
And so my culture is important to me, but I'm still like trying to find my way back to it.
It's like you grow up, you're like socialized to fit in, right?
Yeah.
That often means casting aside like the culture that you grew up in. I feel like we're all experiencing it to some degree of like, hey, should I like look into like where I came from more? It's a great thing if you can be proud of where you came from. Yeah. I'm glad that we're connecting to that.
Cool. Is the music saying it's over? It's saying it's over.
That
Oh,
was so fun.
That was interesting.
this was fun. This guy's hilarious.
Can I be friends with all
Oh,
of
that guy's hilarious. Strongly agree, I guess. There we go.
And if you strongly agree, subscribe and let us know what you thought in the comments below.
I'll include
See you next
the
time.
original video in the link in the description below. I'll include the original video in the description below so you guys can check it out and subscribe and check out their other videos. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good, like it touches on a lot of important issues, and I was glad that I was able to watch it. Anyway, that's going to be it for this time, guys. I basically included whatever I was going to say during the video, so no real outro necessary. But yeah, thanks for watching. Leave a like, really helps with the channel. Not sure what I'm going to do next week just yet, but yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye, friends.